النجاة بأرض المدينة. أقمنا الصلاة لعل الجباه تلامس موضع أقدام طه. مباركة كل أرض أتاها، فيا سعد روحي بترب المدينة. هنا والذي خلق العالمين، شفاء السقام والعاشقين. جوار النبي سبى الروح فينا، وذاب الهوى في هواء المدينة. سلامي عليه سلام لروحي، جلاء الهموم شفاء الجروح. فإن عدت للبعد يا روح روحي، فأسمى معاني الهوى في المدينة. على النبض قالوا وصلنا المدينة، فهاجت مشاعر قلبي الدفينة. حبيبي محمد من عشت أرجو لقاه هنا، منه نور المدينة. هنا كان يأكل حبي ويشرب، هنا كان قلب ملاقيه يطرب. فيا ليتني عشت عمري يا أقرب، وكنت له خادما في المدينة. هنا قام ليلا وصام وصلى، هنا العز والجود كل تجلى. وما رد ضيف بداره حلا، فجئنا وكل الرجا في المدينة. بروضته يا هناء المصلي، صفاء الكئيب وزاد المقل. دخلت وصليت فيها لعلي أنال النجاة بأرض المدينة. أقمنا الصلاة لعل الجباه تلامس موضع أقدام طه. مباركة كل أرض أتاها، فيا سعد روحي بترب المدينة. هنا والذي خلق العالمين، شفاء السقام والعاشقين. جوار النبي سبى الروح فينا، وذاب الهوى في هواء المدينة. سلامي عليه سلام لروحي، جلاء الهموم شفاء الجروح. فإن عدت للبعد يا روح روحي، فأسمى معاني الهوى في المدينة. على النبض قالوا وصلنا المدينة، فهاجت مشاعر قلبي الدفينة. حبيبي محمد من عشت أرجو لقاه هنا، منه نور المدينة. هنا كان يأكل حبي ويشرب، هنا كان قلب ملاقيه يطرب. فيا ليتني عشت عمري يا أقرب، وكنت له خادما في المدينة. هنا قام ليلا وصام وصلى، هنا العز والجود كل تجلى. وما رد ضيف بداره حلا، فجئنا وكل الرجا في المدينة بروضته يا هناء المصلي، صفاء الكئيب وزاد المقل. دخلت وصليت فيها لعلي أنال النجاة بأرض المدينة. أقمنا الصلاة لعل الجباه تلامس موضع أقدام طه، مباركة كل أرض أتاها، فيا سعد روحي بترب المدينة. هنا والذي خلق العالمين شفاء السقام والعاشقين، جوار النبي سبى الروح فينا، وذاب الهوى في هواء المدينة. سلامي عليه سلام لروحي، جلاء الهموم شفاء الجروح، فإن عدت للبعد يا روح روحي، فأسمى معاني الهوى في المدينة. على النبض قالوا وصلنا المدينة، فهاجت مشاعر قلبي الدفينة. حبيبي محمد من عشت أرجو لقاه هنا، منه نور المدينة. هنا كان يأكل حبي ويشرب، هنا كان قلب ملاقيه يطرب، فيا ليتني عشت عمري أقرب، وكنت له خادما في المدينة. هنا قام ليلا وصام وصلى، هنا العز والجود.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين، وعلى جميع إخوانه من النبيين والمرسلين، وآل كل وصحب كل ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and protect his nation from that which he fears for them. We ask Allah Ta'ala to increase our knowledge and benefit us with the knowledge we have acquired. Ameen. Insha'Allah Ta'ala, since we are looking forward to welcome the month of Ramadan, we'll revise together, insha'Allah, the important rules about fasting. The scholars said, fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation upon every accountable Muslim who is able to fast. Fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation because it's one of the most important matters of Islam, and it is the best of all the months. The Prophet ﷺ in the hadith said, Buniya al-Islamu ala khams, meaning Islam is based on 5 important matters. He mentioned the 2 testifications of faith, no one is God except Allah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, performing the prayers, paying the due zakah, fasting the month of Ramadan, and performing Hajj. Also, Allah Ta'ala mentioned that fasting has been ordained as an obligation upon you, meaning this nation, as it was ordained upon the previous nations, so that you may become pious. First of all, fasting from dawn till sunset is not specific to this nation. The followers of the previous prophets used to fast from dawn till sunset. However, what is specific for this nation is to fast the month of Ramadan. Allah Azza wa Jal bestowed upon this nation many endowments. One of these endowments is that He specified the month of Ramadan, which is the best of all the months, for this nation to fast. And in it, as you know, there is the best of all nights, the night of Al-Qadr, the best of all the nights. When one must fast or start fasting, the scholars said that one must start fasting after the completion of 30 days of Sha'ban, starting from seeing the crescent of Sha'ban. So you count 30 days, then you start Ramadan, because the months, the lunar months, cannot be more than 30 days. That's the maximum. Always the lunar month is either 29 or 30 days. So that's number one. Upon the completion of 30 days of Sha'ban, or otherwise, if the crescent of Ramadan was seen after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, then there is no 30th of Sha'ban. The following day will be the first day of Ramadan. It is a communal obligation upon Muslims to observe the crescent of the new moon for each lunar month. Why? Because Islamically, there are rules pertaining to this. See, for instance, the iddah. The iddah may relate to the lunar months. Being on the land of Arafah, determining days of Eid, and so on, they all pertain to the lunar months. So it is a communal obligation upon Muslims to observe the crescent of the new moon each month. They do that by watching the western horizon where the sun has set. They watch the horizon. After the sun has set, if the crescent is there, because sometimes the moon may set after the sun, so they move from east to west, but sometimes the sun would set before the moon. Sometimes could be a few minutes, sometimes together. They set together so you won't be able to see it. Sometimes it will be delayed by, let us say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so you have the opportunity to see it. Sometimes it might be there, but you are blocked from seeing it by clouds and dust and the like. So what should they do? The Prophet ﷺ showed us the method by which we can determine the beginning of every lunar month as well as the end of it. And this is by observing the western horizon after the sunset of the 29th day of the month. If we see the crescent, we know the following day is the new lunar month. If we don't see it, then the following day will be the 30th. and the day after will be the first day of the coming month. That's the only way. From the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions after the Prophet, the followers of the companions, the followers of the followers, then the Khalaf, the successors who came after the predecessors, as Salaf, continued doing the same thing. They watched the horizon after the sunset of the 29th day of the month. If they see the crescent, they know the following day is the beginning of the new month. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, the great and righteous companion, saw the crescent of Ramadan once. So he went to the Prophet and he said to him, I testify that I had seen the crescent of Ramadan this night. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fasted, meaning the following day, and he proclaimed it to others. He announced it to others to fast. Why? Because Abdullah ibn Umar is a trustworthy Muslim. So if you see the crescent yourself after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, you must fast the following day as the beginning of Ramadan. If a lady sees the crescent of Ramadan after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, she has to start fasting the following day. Although, if she were to go to the judge and testify before the judge that she had seen the crescent, the judge will tell her you can fast, but he wouldn't announce it to others. So the one who sees the crescent of Ramadan must start fasting the following day. The one who does not see it, but a trustworthy Muslim has told him that he had seen the crescent of Ramadan, has to start fasting as well. So this is the way. Now when we say a trustworthy Muslim, here we're talking about someone who is Muslim, male, free, who avoids committing the major sins, and he does not commit the minor sins excessively to the extent that his bad deeds would be more than his good deeds. Now, sometimes a person may commit a minor sin and he may repeat it. Let us say, shaking hands with a marriageable lady. She's not his wife. She's not non-marriageable to him. Rather, she is a marriageable lady to him. And he's not married to her. So when he shakes hands with her, that's haram. This is a minor sin. It's not like fornication, which is a major sin. So a person may go to work every day and he shakes hands with ladies. He's committing minor sins. Even if one were to commit that minor sin every day, it doesn't become a major sin by being repeated every day, unless one, by continuously and excessively committing the minor sins, he reaches a stage where his bad deeds become more than his good deeds. Then being consistent in that case on committing minor sins will be classified as a major sin. If someone avoids usually the major sins, but he's committing the minor sins excessively to the extent that his bad deeds become more than his good deeds, then his testimony won't be accepted. He's not trustworthy. The last thing is someone needs to abide by the behavior and character of the people of his class. Meaning, he may do inappropriate behavior. It might not be haram, but it's inappropriate. And that inappropriate behavior that does not befit people of his class will render that person not trustworthy. Like the scholars mention, the one who flies pigeons. The one who flies pigeons, his testimony won't be accepted by the judge. You know those who have that hobby? They send them, they fly them. In some cases, they bring with them foreign pigeons for others. Very unlikely for that person to go and ask, who is that pigeon for? It came with my pigeons, to return it to its owner. That's very unlikely. So he might ignore this and be negligent about this. So the scholar said he might be negligent about giving the testimony as well. So that thing would render him not classified as adl, upright, to give the testimony before the judge. Also, they mentioned that the one who plays chess excessively, spending a lot of time in playing chess, although playing chess is not haram, because it relies on what? On thinking, on one's intelligence, how to make every move. So it's not on guessing or chance, like the games they play with the dice. The games that are played with the dice are forbidden games because they rely on chance. Remember the snakes and ladders for the children? That's forbidden. Monopoly, they use the dice and they move based on what they have. So that relies on chance. These games are forbidden in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that the one who plays with the dice as if he submerged his hand in the flesh and blood of a pig. This is to show that this act is forbidden. Usually all these games that rely on chance, they lead to what? To conflict, dispute. See how some people play with the playing cards. And maybe you've seen some videos when they end up fighting one another. It all relies on what? Chance. Chess does not rely on chance. It relies on one's smartness. However, to excessively play chess, that renders one's testimony not accepted by the judge. Also, they said the one who excessively tells jokes to make people laugh. He does that excessively. Then his testimony won't be accepted by the judge. So, see, like this act, even if he's not lying, but it's inappropriate to excessively keep telling jokes to make people laugh. So in that case, his testimony won't be accepted by the judge. But if an upright Muslim, as we mentioned, Muslim, male, free, avoiding the major sins, doesn't commit minor sins excessively, he's abiding by the behavior and character of the people of his class, testifies before the judge that he had seen the crescent of Ramadan, then the judge will order him to fast the following day and also will announce it to others. As the case with Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, when he told the Prophet and the Prophet fasted and he asked people to fast as well. However, if the astronomers and mathematicians who made their calculations about the phases of the moon and concluded that the beginning of Ramadan will be on that day, Islamically, no reliance is due to what they say. We don't rely on their calculations. That's by consensus. So let us say, for instance, Muslims, after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, observed the western horizon and they couldn't see the crescent. What does that mean? They continue Sha'ban 30 days and the day after will be the first of Ramadan. But let us say one of the astronomers, based on his calculation, he said Ramadan will start on that day. But that day, according to him, is the 30th of Sha'ban for Muslims. Here, Muslims wouldn't say, what should we do? We couldn't see the crescent, and this astronomer is claiming that today is supposed to be the first day of Ramadan. His calculations has no reliance on in our religion at all. And that's confirmed in the hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari and others, when the Prophet ﷺ made it very clear, and he said, we are a nation that do not rely on calculations to determine the beginning and the end of the month. The month is either 29 or 30 days. So the Prophet ﷺ made it very clear in the hadith. And I'll mention some quotes from the 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence to show that this is a case of consensus. So it's not a case of dispute amongst the scholars. Keep that in mind. In the book called Asna al-Matalib, Sharh Rawd al-Talib, authored by Shaykh Zakaria al-Ansari al-Shafii, volume 1, page 410. He said, no consideration is given to the astronomers, and it's not a must, an obligation to fast based on their statement, and it is not allowed, it's not lawful. In a book called Radd al-Muhtar ala al-Durr al-Mukhtar for Ibn Abidin, he's Hanafi. So the first one is Shafi'i, this one is Hanafi. Volume 2, page 387. He said, no consideration is given to the mathematicians and astronomers to announce the obligation of fasting upon people. Rather, in a book called Al-Mi'raj, it was said, no consideration is given to what they say by consensus. So that's Hanafi. Then he said, the proof for what we had mentioned is that the Prophet ﷺ did not accept the calculations of the astronomers. Rather, the Prophet nullified, disregarded their calculations by its entirety by saying, we do not rely on the calculations of the astronomers for the beginning and the end of the month. The month is either 29 or 30 days. So that's in the hadith. So now we mentioned Shafi'i and Hanafi. Now, in a book called Al-Sharh al-Kabir, authored by Ad-Dardir, that's in the school of Imam Malik, volume 1, page 512. He said, Ramadan cannot be confirmed by the statement of the astronomers. Not even for himself, not even for others. So even that one who is making his own calculations cannot rely on his calculations, he's saying, and fast based on this. So for a greater reason, if he cannot fast based on his own calculations, others wouldn't fast based on his statement. And also in a book called كشاف القناع عن متن الإقناع, in the school of Imam Ahmad radiyallahu anhu, volume 2, page 302, he said, and look at the words here, he said, if one were to fast the 30th of Sha'ban without relying on an Islamic proof as to had seen the crescent, he doesn't have that proof, or the completion of the month of Sha'ban, 30 days, or that the horizon was covered, blocked by clouds or dust and the like. Rather, he fasted based on calculations. Even if in many cases they might be correct, they coincide with people's observation. In many cases it may coincide with people's observation. Then he said, and later, meaning during the day, they knew that was the first day of Ramadan. He said his fast is not valid for not relying on what is accepted Islamically as an evidence. That means, let us say, after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, Muslims watched the horizon. They didn't see the crescent. So what do? They complete Sha'ban 30 days. Someone, based on calculations, put the intention to fast the following day as of what? As of Ramadan. Then he slept. The following day he woke up and they told him, someone saw the crescent. But that was too late to be reported. But when he put the intention based on what? The calculations of the astronomers, not on an Islamic evidence. So he's saying that his fast is not valid. In another book called the Khilaf al-Ulama, it's mentioned that all the scholars agreed that no consideration should be given to the calculations of the astronomers to determine the beginning of the month of Ramadan. And that can only be determined by either seeing the crescent of Ramadan or the completion of Sha'ban 30 days. So that's what the scholars mentioned from the 4 schools of Islamic jurisprudence. Even there was a mufti of Egypt in the past, Muhammad Alish al-Maliki. He mentioned in it, as in a question form and answer, that he was asked about someone in charge, like a ruler in charge, who does not rely on moon sighting. Rather, he relied on calculations of the astronomers, and he's calling people to follow him, to listen to him and follow him in that way of determining the month of Ramadan, meaning based on calculations. Should he be obeyed in that case? Sheikh Muhammad Alish, the Mufti at that time, said it's haram for Muslims to follow him, because that's not the Islamic way. So he should be ignored and not followed in his way. For hundreds of years, from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam up to recent decades, Muslims used to do this, to follow this way. They watch the horizon after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban. If they see the crescent, They start fasting the following day. If they don't see it, they complete Sha'ban 30 days. Then they start fasting the month of Ramadan after. For hundreds of years. Only recently, some people, unfortunately, just for their own sake, because they wanted to determine the beginning of the month and the end of it in advance, started adopting this method of calculations. Not only that, they started pushing hard to convince Muslims to follow their way under the claim that they want to unite Muslims, they want to bring them together, and they can program their agenda before that day, so they know prior, by 2 weeks, and so on. So under the title of all these claims, they are pushing hard to convince people to follow the calculations of the astronomers. And not only that, they made something, an innovation, a very ugly and bad innovation that never happened in the history of Muslims. They make what they call it a council. And they invite 6, 7 so-called sheikhs to that council. They sit around a round table and they discuss, when do you want Ramadan to start? One would say, let us say, I reckon Saturday is good. Another one would say, no, maybe Sunday. So we start on Sunday. They start voting. I'm not exaggerating. A few years ago, it happened. They called for a meeting. 6, 7 people came together. They announced the day of Eid as being on Sunday. And they made their press release about this, that Eid will be on Sunday. The following day, we saw in the newspaper another so-called sheikh writing an article saying, based on the calculations of another astronomer, Eid will be on Saturday, and Muslims are forbidden from fasting the day of Eid. Oh, Muslims, do not fast on Saturday because it's Eid. He said, and I was supposed to be in that meeting, but unfortunately I was excluded from attending that meeting, and they announced the Eid on Sunday, but I say it's on Saturday. This is the way they unite Muslims? Couple of years ago in Melbourne, in one of these councils, they came together and they started talking about Eid, but they couldn't agree on a day. People left undetermined. The president of that association and the like in that mosque, he went out to public and he said to people, unfortunately we couldn't agree on a day, so we'll leave it to you, you choose. And he left. Is that the unity? That caused more division. Unity is by following the Prophet ﷺ, not by following the astronomers. And if those ones are not united by the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, you expect for them to be united by the astronomers so they can bring them together? Those people are following, unfortunately, their bad inclinations. Every one of them has something to lean to. And that's why they do this. Even in one of the years, I remember about the beginning of Ramadan, one astronomer said it's on Tuesday, another astronomer said Wednesday, another one said on Thursday. 3 statements. So you cannot Islamically rely on them. That what is causing division, and you can see people at that time, some starting on Tuesday, others starting on another day, and so on. And there was someone in the office of Mufti, they call him, he said, I'll take the middle. So let us make it on Wednesday. Is that how religion is implemented? The Prophet ﷺ taught us a very simple way. Very simple way. Even the one who is in the Uluru, you know the Uluru, who doesn't have internet or mobile phone or anything of that, can follow this way. He can observe the western horizon after the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban. If he sees the crescent, he would know tomorrow is the beginning of Ramadan. If he doesn't see it, he would say, I'll continue Sha'ban 30 days. Very simple method, not complicated. The calculations of the astronomers are complicated. Not too many people know about it. Only few amongst Muslims, worldwide, who might have that knowledge how to make these calculations. But some people, those ones, trying in vain to convince people to follow that method instead of the Prophet's method. What do they say to people? They say, yeah, the Prophet did say, start fasting when you see the crescent and stop the fast when you see the crescent. If you are blocked from seeing it, then complete the month 30 days. They say, yes, we do believe in that. But the Prophet, according to them, said that because at that time, not too many people were aware of the science of astronomy. But now with the technology, with all these sciences becoming available, computers, whatever, now we follow that method. Now the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal does not change based on technology. Whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, we follow. It doesn't change because of technology. So those people, we say to them, at the time of the Prophet, there were a few who were aware of the science of astronomy. Now, there are still a few, nothing changed. Go and ask Muslims in your area, in your country, how many do you find who are able to rely on the calculations of the astronomers? In every house, in every suburb, very rare to find ones like this. So the situation is the same. And the Prophet at his time, despite the fact that there were astronomers, the Prophet ﷺ made it very clear. He said, we do not rely on the calculations of the astronomers to determine the beginning and the end of the month. Fast when you see the crescent and end your fast when you see the crescent. He didn't say, fast when you see the crescent and end your fast when you see the crescent. If it is not seen, resort to the calculations of the astronomers. No. Is that clear up to here? So technology does not nullify the rules of the religion. So it's not far that you may see someone now telling a lady who gets divorced, for instance, instead of waiting the iddah for 3 non-menstrual periods around 3 months, go make pregnancy test. If you find yourself not pregnant, then your iddah is finished. And he might claim that the Prophet ﷺ advised the lady that gets divorced to wait for about 3 months because they didn't have that technology at that time. They may say this. So they are trying to abolish the rules of the religion. Technology does not change the rules of the religion. And some of them, because they want to deceive the lay people, because some people who are not educated Islamically, they may be misled by them. One of them was asked once, what's the proof that we can rely on astronomy? And he said, observing the crescent. Do you know what did he tell them? He told them, the sprinkler in the toilet for the bidet when you go to the toilet and you use that sprinkler. He said, that's the proof. Then he said, yeah, that didn't exist at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani look at this person, his capacity of understanding and his domain of thinking is the toilet. And he's trying to get evidence from there. That's his domain of thinking. He said, they never used to use that sprinkler, now they use it. That's technology. It doesn't change the fact that you have to observe. Another thing that many people are unaware of, and I want you to understand that, the astronomers calculate the phases of the moon. See how it starts as a crescent, in the middle of the month it's full moon, then it starts becoming less. The astronomer can make the calculations, and his determination is what? He can get to what result? He can say the birth of the new moon will be on that day at this time. That's his capacity. So he might say the new crescent, the birth of the new crescent will be on Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, okay, what does that mean? Do we start fasting at 10 o'clock in the morning? No. So what do we rely on? We need to see after sunset. Then you ask this astronomer, can we see it after sunset? He would tell you, I'm not sure. If it's clear sky, you may be able to see it. If it's cloudy, you won't be able to see it. So what did he benefit me with? Because in all cases, I'm going to follow what the Prophet said. Wait for that night after sunset. If I can see it, I know the following day is the beginning of Ramadan. If I don't see it, I complete 30 days. So this astronomer was sweating, making the calculations. Then in the end, he told me, yeah, you might see it after sunset and you might not see it. What's the other probability? You might see and you might not see. That's something normal. So what did he benefit me with? Nothing. In fact, nothing. But I may rely on his calculations to do what? To make an estimate for a calendar for the whole year. So I use it as an estimate and I say that's based on calculations. However, the proper way of determining the beginning and the end of the month is by observation. But I can rely on him. For what reason? Just to put that estimate. Another misconception that these people may rely on. They say to you, how do you use the calendar for the prayer? For the time of the prayer. So you pray, let us say Maghrib at 8 o'clock on this day. So you are using the calendar. That's something fixed. So you tell him on the 17th of Feb of every year, the sun will set at this particular time here. That will not change. Every year will be the same. So based on the seasons, you have fixed times that won't change. So the sun will set on this day, even for thousands of years, the same time. But the lunar months won't be the same. Based on the observation, sometimes the month is 29, sometimes it is 30. And it doesn't have to be 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30. Could be sometimes 29, 29. Could be 30, 30. It happens. It happens. So, based on that, the prayer is different. The prayer is different. So, you know, the sunset for today is at that particular time. Every year on this same day in this area will remain the same, will not change. But Ramadan, is it 30 days? Is it 29 days? What about Sha'ban? That differs. That's what the Prophet said very clearly. He said, we do not rely on the calculations of the astronomers to determine the beginning and the end of the month. The month is either 29 or 30 days. That's it. With that simple way, they know. Now, here in this country, they always make an issue about it. Why? Because some people do not want to wait till they hear about the confirmation. They want to know about it prior to the sunset of the 29th day of Sha'ban, and that can't be Islamic way. Can't be Islamic way. Now, the Prophet ﷺ said that you start your fast when you see the crescent, and you end your fast when you see the crescent. But he didn't specify a region, meaning those in that same town would follow their own observation. The hadith is broad. That's why many scholars like Imam Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, and Imam Ahmad, they mention that if the crescent is seen in any part of the world, then all those who know about the confirmation of fasting in that region must follow them. And they mentioned that if the crescent is seen in the far west, people in the far east who hear about this must start fasting. That's according to these three scholars. According to Imam El-Shafie radiallahu anhu, based on what Muslims did in the past, because they didn't have the internet or all these facilities to mention to each other, he said, those who live in a region where they share the same time for sunrise and sunset would follow one another. So that's called the close regions. Close regions. In the books of the fiqh, they use al-bilad al-qariba. Al-bilad, those who are ignorant about religion, they say the countries. Based on the modern term of al-bilad. That's not the case. When they say al-bilad al-qariba, the close regions. Like, see, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan, they have the same time for sunrise and sunset. According to Imam Al-Shafi'i, if the crescent was seen in Lebanon, confirmed, then people in Syria, Palestine, and Jordan would follow them. Because they share the same sunrise and sunset. If we come to Australia, Australia is a continent. If you were to cut out the map of Australia and put it in Europe, You'll have how many countries? It will cover Germany, France, Holland, UK, and other countries. It covers them. It's a big country. And because it's so big, it has longitude. You know the longitude, the lines, many lines going through. So they don't share the same sunrise and sunset. So in Sydney, it's different from Melbourne. They don't share the same sunrise and sunset. In Sydney is different from Adelaide, for instance, different from Darwin, different from Perth. So according to Imam El-Shafie radiallahu anhu, if you are observing in Sydney, they call it local moon sighting. That's the local. Only within that region, they share the same sunrise, sunset. They can follow each other. According to Imam Al-Shafii, people in Sydney do not follow people in Melbourne or Adelaide or Perth. They don't have that same sunrise and sunset. Is that clear up to here? So if someone says, I will take by the country, define country for me. You have Fiji and you have Australia. What do you mean by country? Because they misunderstood the terms of the scholars, he said Australia on its own. So Sydney and Perth, that's not according to Shafii. That will be according to the other scholars. And according to the other scholars, it's not limited by that same country. It's worldwide. So if you were to rely on seeing the crescent in Perth, for the same reason, Islamically, you would rely on seeing the crescent in Lebanon, in Canada, the same. So if someone were to say, I want to follow Shafi'i, but I'll follow Perth, we say to him, you are not following Shafi'i or Hanafi or Maliki or Hanbali, you are following Perth. If he says, I want to follow Melbourne, Sydney and Melbourne, let's put them together. So you are not following the scholars, you are following Melbourne. And last year, subhanAllah, they made a big issue about the beginning of Ramadan, and people like split, and they started, everyone discrediting the other one. It's your fault, it's your fault. Throwing blames on one another. Then within the same group, the Wahhabis, same group, they split into different sayings. And some of them, they said, now we have made our decision. We'll take Australia. So they brought maybe the pencil. They made a circle around Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia. We follow these countries. What about Brunei? It's close as well. Why did you exclude it in that drawing? What about Cambodia? Yeah, you can go further even. Is that how they follow the religion? They draw a line around, they choose, they pick certain countries. We say we follow one another. It's not like this. That's why, brothers in Islam, if one were to make sure that he is obeying Allah as ordered, he must fulfill the obligation as ordered. Not as being told by X and Y. That's if you want your safety in the hereafter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We say La ilaha illallah and make salah on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
على النبض قالوا وصلنا المدينة فهاجت مشاعر قلبي الدفينة. حبيبي محمد من عشت أرجو، هنا منه نور المدينة. هنا كان يأكل حبي ويشرب، هنا كان قلب ملاقيه يطرب. فيا ليتني عشت عمري أقرب، وكنت له خادما في المدينة. هنا قام ليلا وصام وصلى،